Hey everyone, Larry Chen here. We're back at Eimer Engineering for an update on the G16 GR86 all-wheel drive project.
Yeah, here we are. Now the car's about ready to go off to paint, so all the fabrication has been done and everything's been sorted out as far as the drivetrain, the suspension, and all the hard bits that could complicate it when it goes back together. They've been all done, sorted,
So then the motor has been set, the motor mount's done, and you've measured it out, like the motor's been in here.
Motor's been in, it's been hanging by itself throughout its mounts. The subframe is on, the suspension's been all together, the steering's all hooked up and linked up.
So then where's the motor now?
Well, the motor is, it's on a crate right over here. We took it out because this is going to paint in a couple days, so we had to strip it out so that they can have more access to paint the car without having to mask off things and move things and, you know, just assist the paint guys.
So then the plumbing, all of this is gonna need to be redone?
No, all this can stay. The brake lines can all stay. The only one that's gonna need to get rerouted is gonna be the brake line for the front over here, the passenger side. The rest of this, I mean, these are just fuel ones, but they all kind of like, imagine like this, which have plenty of room because of how far forward the motor is sitting. And the trans is over here. Yeah, it's got.
So you're gonna just have to tuck it out of the way.
We just have it like this right now because the guys are gonna go in and paint all this so they can kind of like set it in the center and wrap it up to not get paint on it.
Got it.
And then once it'll go, you know, the booster goes back. This bolts right back to stock, the stock spot. Everything clears. These will go back onto the stock spot where they bolt in and clip in at. And they sit roughly, you know, like that.
So then the motor mount itself, so much higher than stock location.
Yeah, stock location technically for the GR86 is on the subframe because the motor just rests on the subframe through rubber mounts.
Oh, it doesn't even, it's not even on this?
No. There's no provision for a motor mount on the chassis itself.
Oh, okay. And then, so you just figured it out, like...
Based on where the motor is and the stock motor mounts are, we tried to stay within those kind of constraints so that, you know, everything's in its right location and we're not changing any major location on the motor itself.
Mm-hmm. This is just notched, like you guys...
This was notched, yeah, basically just to provide some clearance so that you can work on it. You know, you can change a belt, you can change a pulley, etc., without having to take the motor out to do a simple task.
And then now I see steering rack is mounted, as well as your custom subframe here.
Yes, to pick up the rear part of the lower arm, the inner rear pivot is located, and then there'll be a skid plate under here to protect the motor from damage or anything that may or may not hit it because it hangs, you know, like a ½ inch lower than the chassis line, lowest point of the chassis.
And then, so how's the clearance? Like, it's just enough for the oil pan and stuff here?
Yeah, so I gave it about, once the skid plate goes on, from the top side of the skid plate, let's say, the bottom of this subframe to the oil pan is about 1 inch.
And then this worked out? Like, you cut this out?
Basically, I cut it out because we're gonna put a carbon hood on it. But I wanted to make sure that stock hood can still close. And so we were able to make it fit and have clearance under a stock hood. So we had to cut that out, and it made just sense to just trim the whole thing out, make sure that it works.
So the biggest undertaking for you, I'm assuming, was putting the cage in here.
Yes, tying the cage into the chassis to help make the front a little stronger, especially because now the motor is more reliant on the frame rails than it is on the subframe.
Versus before it was
Versus
on the subframe.
before it was mounted to the subframe, which then is mounted to the chassis. So it becomes more of a different in terms of like a structural member.
Well, let's take a look at the cage on the inside here. So built by Cage Kits.
Yes. Cage Kits basically offers this one online, and you order it in a few weeks. It comes in, and here we are.
How was it?
Couple of
putting
days. Well, it's Cage Kits. I've worked with them before. Those guys are amazing. Everything fits perfect. I mean, you see how tight everything is to the car. Takes a couple days to get it all situated and welded up, and you know, this is the result. This is what it looks like.
So then, is there like a specific like homologation for? Is this like a FD style?
This cage is a
rally
road race
style?
style cage because they didn't want the cage to go into the doors too much because they want to build nice door cards, like carbon door cards. So the difference between this cage and the drift cage is he brings the door bars into the door more for, you know, protection with drifting. So these ones are set back to where we can still run a nice door card and keep a nice clean finish on the inside of the car.
It looks really good.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
So then, it just took you a couple days to put this together, huh?
Yeah, it's about a day of getting everything situated and tacked together and knowing like this is where it goes and this is how it's gonna go, and making sure that everything is in its correct spot. And then, you know, you start welding the spots that you can see and get to real easy, and then you gotta do some manipulating and move the cage around in the car to be able to weld the hard spots, and then pick it back up and put it back into its spot, its final resting spot, and then weld the rest of it.
What's this tab here for?
A spare tire is going to live in the stock location, and there's a Y strap that will, like a ratcheting Y strap, that will hook there and here to hold the spare in the car.
All right, so what's changed underneath here? So the rear subframe.
Rear subframe stayed intact. We built the mount for the Corolla diff. Currently, I cut and modified these axles to get the right length so that we can get them made correctly, because the outer CV on the Corolla is a different spline and size than the GR86. So we need to change the CV out here and use a, you know, not cut and modified axle shaft.
Right, so you're gonna send these to...
We can send these, and now they know the length that it needs to be to make sure that we get done correctly the first time.
Which part is custom?
Okay, so we basically made this bracket that bolts to the diff right here, and then it has some offset spacers that allow it to bolt back into the stock rear portion of the GR86 diff. That into the subframe. So this is the stock locations.
And then all this stuff lines
right
up?
Here ended up lining up with, as you can kind of see right here, it's a big cross member from side to side of the stock subframe. So basically what we ended up doing was, you might be able to see a little better right here, is we blew a hole in the stock subframe, and we welded in like 1-inch weld bosses that have the proper thread for this metric bolt, and now you just bolt it right in. That was about the only real modification to the rear subframe area.
It's great though, it's in.
Oh, it's in, yeah. Axles are in the right spot.
And it's centered.
Yeah. It has to be a little bit off. The axles are equal, but because of what they have going on in here, and typically on this with a ring and pinion, it's usually a little offset. So it is a little bit to the passenger side, but that's
within spec.
No, totally within.
Yeah.
And then the drive shaft can come up. We cut this a little bit right here to allow the exhaust to snake by and give room for the drive shaft. But outside of that, there's not really a whole lot going on down here.
So tell me about this. How was it making this?
This is tricky because the transmission sits right here. So we had to come up with a way to get the steering rack back in a stock-like location. And what we were able to come up with is, this is as far as the rack can go forward before it hits the transmission. And we're gonna have to use offset spacers where the tie rod connects to move it the additional space needed forward to then put it back in the proper location as like the GR86 stock would be.
Understood. So then how much of the suspension or how much of it did you have to mock together already? Like, did you test fit everything to the point where the wheel and
Oh yeah, we've
it?
had the wheel on, we've tested steering, we checked travel. We built a custom lower arm that is adjustable so that we can basically mimic the stock location to get it right and work and provide room for the items that we have going on. Because with having a drive shaft now in here, or a half shaft, makes it a little tricky. You know, there's more going on than normal.
What's all this stuff here?
They're just holes to help relieve some space, some weight, etc. Nothing fancy.
Do you have that stuff here?
Yeah, so we built arms. It'll basically, it goes in right here and here, and
that goes to the stock location.
the stock location. And then so from there, we can manipulate the point to get the right camber and caster back into the car to make it more correct to how it was before doing the modification of the motor.
Because this is not going wide body, is it?
I don't believe
You
so.
don't know? Oh.
I do not believe
Okay.
so.
All right. So since it's not going wide body, mimicking stock location.
Yeah, it's critical
ideal.
because you only have so much room in the wheel well. And then for it to be able to move and not rub into things, it needs to be pretty close to where factory is going to be. But with this, we don't have to keep guessing and trying. Like, you can just make some adjustments and you can get it there and tighten it up and call it a day.
So what's all this stuff? Is this?
So this is all the shifter, booster, drive shaft. This piece is the front bash bar that houses the intercooler and oil cooler. And then it's the Corolla knuckles, spindles, axles. Those are the stock GR86 shocks. And then this is the Corolla shifter.
So you'll save how much of this stuff? Like the shifter stuff?
Shifter will be used. The arms and axles will be used. The shocks are going to be replaced. I believe they're going to be a more rally spec, a little more travel out of them than a regular aftermarket shock. The drive shaft, again, same thing. We made it work. We had to shorten it, so I put this little sleeve right here just to, again, give proper length. You know, so now we can go get a drive shaft made, and they know what it needs to be because we've already had this in the car in a working manner. And then the pedal assembly, that'll go back in.
Okay, that's the GR86 pedal.
Correct, correct.
And it's going to work with the G16 engine.
Yes.
Or you'll make it work. Or they'll make it work.
No, that actually, the only reason it wouldn't work is if the master cylinder on the GR86 is a different size than what the Corolla is, and it makes the pedal effort odd, then we might need to change the master. But outside of that, that should be the only foreseen like hiccup with that. Other than that, it's pretty much making a line go from A to B and putting fluid in it and bleeding it out.
So then you made some piping also.
We made the intercooler piping. So this basically lives like right here on the intercooler. Actually, like this. And then this one does to the motor, which is kind of, was a tricky one because the turbo is in the back of the motor. So we had to kind of get around it. And I didn't want to go up and over the motor because it's tight that way too. So I had to go under, but there's also an axle right there. So we ended up, this ended up being the pipe, but it goes like this in the car, which is crazy because the axle's like right here. We had to split the difference. So this goes from the lower, like the water pump area, to the lower side of the 86 radiator. So it sits here like this.
It doesn't make sense to use silicone because it's just so far, huh?
Yeah, and to find something that's gonna land in both sections properly is super, how would I say it? Labor intensive and a lot of trial and error of, okay, this has gotta go like this, like this. At the point that you've thought about the process, you could just make this with some aluminum tubing and it's done. There is the silicone at the ends, at each end where it couples to the radiator and the motor, but outside of that, to get from A to B, the simple, especially over the span that needs to be for this application, it's easier to do it out of the aluminum like that.
So what's next? It's going to paint.
Yes.
And then is it coming back here?
No, so later today we'll put the car on a dolly so it can go to paint and it won't have any of the suspension. Basically give the painters the best opportunity to not have to remove a bunch of things so they can get the best job. Once it goes to paint, they got to do some modifications to the bumpers and some other things that they'll be doing besides just painting it. And then from there, it should go back to Evasive, and they're gonna be putting it back together and then doing their touch on it with all the carbon bits. And the one hardest part was getting it to fit. Now the next obstacle that is an unknown would be making it run, which from what we've kind of looked into and got out of it, shouldn't be too tricky, but you think it's not tricky. It doesn't look to be tricky, but until you've actually done it, there's not really a good answer.
So it's going to use a stock gas tank then?
Yes.
And then what about this stuff? Is this going to be powder coated or is it?
Yeah, so all this stuff is going to stay here, and I have some like final welding and some little gussets to put on some things, just things that were hard to do with everything together. So we'll pull it off. Like the arms you saw, they're not fully welded, but I'll take them all apart, weld them up, and then all this will get powder coated so that it stays protected. Once it's all powder coated, it'll go to Evasive, and then once the car gets there, I'll probably go over and help them a little bit because they've never seen all this go together. So if you drop off a bunch of parts with no instructions, they're like, hey, you got to bolt this on. They're going to be like, wait, what?
And you don't have any diagrams or any drawings for any of this stuff. Is it all in your head?
Yeah, I did a lot of it on SolidWorks. There is CAD for most of the stuff that's going on, especially because a lot of this is laser cut plates. So that's the easiest way. But, like the motor sitting in the car CAD, no.
Got it. That's just you lining it up. All
yes.
right, this is a good spot.
Yes.
You tack it in.
Would be awesome to mess with digital scans of everything and kind of pre-game the situation more so than what we had time to do. But, you make it happen, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, can't wait. Love the progress already so much. This is just such a cool project, and I'm so happy to be able to document it from really just a bare chassis to this point.
Oh yeah, right. Same here. It's been very interesting to try to do this, but also look into like, what is the outcome, right? Because like you always see a render or this or that, and then you never see anything real, most of the time you don't see the end product and how it got from A to B. Whereas with this, you're gonna see it, and then you're gonna see it run, and then you're gonna see it, everywhere. And it'll be cool to be like, This is one that was completed, and here's the process of what it took to complete this.
We're here at Evasive Motorsports. The car has finally made it to your shop, and now this is the long and slow process of assembling it and getting it to run. So what are we looking at right here?
Obviously came back from the body shop. We have the rally spec cage fully painted. The engine bay has been sprayed.
Engine bay, so cage, let's go through what was painted.
So obviously, you know, we have the custom mounts that was made, and we notched some of the frames. So all that's been painted. And then, you know, basically the full interior has been resprayed. The sound deadening has been removed. The cage has been painted. And then we're waiting for some body parts to come back still, but the chassis itself is pretty much ready to go.
Last time I had a chance to talk to you about this project, the cage wasn't in, the motor was just getting mocked up.
Yep.
So it's come quite a far way since then.
Yeah. Since then, everything has been fitted onto the car. We've had the engine in it with a complete new subframe that's been fabricated. All the suspension arms, axles, drive shaft has been mocked up. So now we're in the process of actually getting them custom made. The front mount intercooler, radiator, everything has been fabricated, and also all the piping and plumbing has been done. So right now it's just a matter of kind of put things back into place, and then probably, you know, just start fitting all the plumbing and the wiring and stuff.
So you're still waiting on the front subframe to come back from powder coat?
That is at powder coat and should be here this week, yeah.
And then cage went in without much of a hitch. So what was the thought process of painting it white on the inside?
You know, we want to keep it super clean. It's actually it's a Toyota white, but it's a little bit brighter, like a kind of a flat white compared to the pearl white that's on the exterior. Just want to keep the interior bright and very clean. So.
Like a traditional stage rally.
Exactly, yeah.
Vehicle. So how do you think everything came out? What are the challenges up until this point for you guys?
I think everything came out pretty good. I think it's just a matter of, I think the biggest challenge is just to get the wiring sorted. We got the ECU in, so hopefully it's a pretty painless process of plug and play and just, you know, turning off some stuff and getting the car to fire up. But other than that, I think it's just piecing it all together, yeah.
Let's talk about the very next steps, like immediate steps, like this week, next week.
Okay, so the next step is obviously as soon as the subframe comes back, all the suspension components come back, we're gonna do some measurements and send that information to AST, which is, they're gonna supply coilovers for this car. So they're gonna build a custom set of coilovers that will fit this setup. So once we get that sorted, we're gonna start mocking up the engine, put everything back in place, and then the wiring, and then, you know, we have little touches like the rear wing, the front lights, the light pods, Lexan windows, and just the finishing touches, yeah.
These are the seats that you're gonna run in?
Yeah, these are Sparcos.
Love these so much. They're carbon fiber, so they're very lightweight, but they're also FIA certified. So what other things are you working on? I think you were working on some of the door panels or some stuff over there.
Yeah, I mean,
can we take a look at that?
Yes, we can look at it right now. Obviously, we're stripping the door completely of all the factory panels and adding the Lexan window in with the slider.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
That is super cool. So then stock glass comes out, and then the Lexan polycarbonate piece goes in.
Right.
But then you're still gonna have function with the window, or no?
No. We're gonna
delete all this stuff.
We're gonna delete all the stuff behind it. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. This will be a fixed window.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
This is the ECU system that you got.
Yeah. So this is Multec has developed a plug and play ECU kit for the Yaris actually. But essentially, it's kind of the same thing. Just Corolla has 2 extra doors. So this will essentially be a plug-and-play system that allows you to run the car. It comes with a, obviously the ECU, and we have the whole harness. It's really nice, actually.
And then so this will allow you to not have to use the stock GR Corolla ECU.
Exactly.
You can use this ECU,
Yeah.
and it can be customizable.
Yeah, because like I don't think the stock ECU would like to see a lot of stuff being unplugged and modified, because I think the stock car is just gonna trip out and not run. So with this, I think this is the missing link. You know, it allows us to kind of turn off certain functions and just make sure that the engine will run on its own.
Like, what are your thoughts on getting all the way to the finish line, and what are the thoughts of you getting even just to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think when they first approached us with the concept idea, obviously I already thought of many things, hurdles and challenges that we have to face, such as, you know, obviously the electronics, how is the car going to run, the fitment of the engine, such and such. So because it's a race car type of build, we have a lot of experience in kind of doing race cars here. So right away I knew, like, you know, certain things we have to kind of just go with what has been proven for us, what works. Like certain ECUs have worked well for us, certain ways of fabricating, you know, parts have worked well for us. So we kind of take that similar approach into this build, and then kind of set like expectations for what they can expect out of it. You know, like, do you want to take this car and go for jumps? Then we have to figure out suspension travel and such and such. Is this like a tarmac stage type of build? Like, is this going to be a show car? Whatever it is, we just have to make sure that it meets that level of build and it's capable of doing it. So,
Is this your first rally build?
sort of, yeah. I mean, we helped out before with the Gordon's, obviously the Scion rally team, but we didn't build the car. We know kind of how rally cars are built. You have to go kind of extra as far as like making sure you're reinforcing stuff that usually doesn't get reinforced. Just build extra tough, basically, yeah.
So are you learning a lot as you're going along with this build?
I think so. It's not often we do a complete drivetrain engine swap into a car. We've done it before, but it's not something you kind of do every day. So obviously, with something like this, we're bound to run into a lot of challenges. So I think within the next few weeks, we'll actually probably, you know, encounter some of that and then figure out as we go along.